Welcome to Jesus Energy. I'm Kate King. So grateful to be here with you. Today we have something fun in store. Okay, here at Jesus Energy, we focus on coming fully alive in the here and now, living up to our potential, and cultivating some heaven on earth. Today, in order to do that, we are going to focus on the power of the brain, our superpower, and some tangible tools to move out of fear and fight or flight and into a cozy, comfy nervous system we enjoy. In order to do that, I am so excited to bring Sylvie Lahaie to you today. Sylvie is a PhD candidate in neuroscience at McGill University, studying how the brain regulates stress and how thought patterns can be rewired for greater resilience. How enticing does that sound? I want more of that in my life. She is the host of a podcast, Building Your Best Brain, and works with individuals through one-on-one training programs using an at-home EEG device to guide brain waves and brain reprogramming tools. Alongside her research, so cool, Sylvia is also a yoga and meditation teacher integrating mindfulness and neuroscience to help people move from stress and overwhelm toward a more balanced state. I can't think of a more lovely way to spend this morning. I'm so glad you're here with me. I hope that this time together brings deep restoration and a tangible tool for a more enjoyable nervous system. You're amazing. I hope that you have a phenomenal day and that this brings some light to your day. Without further ado, let's do it. Welcome. I'm so pumped to be here with Sylvie Lahaie. Sylvie is as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside. She is a PhD candidate in neuroscience at McGill University, studying how the brain regulates stress and how thought patterns can be rewired for greater resilience. Love that so much. You are also a yoga and meditation teacher. I love the overlap of that, integrating mindfulness and neuroscience to help people move from stress and overwhelm to a more balanced state. This is so fun. I'm so excited. I've been craving learning more about my brain, and I've loved listening to your podcasts on building your best brain and just I feel like you're so cutting edge and
Thank
so
you.
cool. And the research that you're doing and how you're applying it to help people live more resilient and healthy and just grounded, balanced lives is genuinely just really exciting to me. So I kind of feel like a kid in the candy store today.
That's so sweet. Well, I'm excited to be able to unpack some of this with you, but it's
Yeah.
definitely a passion of mine to take, the academic, the
Mm.
science, what we learn
Yes.
about the brain
Yes.
and how we apply it to
Yeah.
everyday life, right? How
Yeah.
can we who walk around with brains all day
Yeah. Yeah.
benefit from, the inherent biology and superpower that we hold between our ears?
Wow. That's so cool. That's so cool. The superpower. I love that
Superpower.
so much.
Brain superpower. Yeah, and we all
Yes.
have it. We all have it. And it's more about not, who is genetically stronger, but
Yeah.
how do we figure out ways to tap into it ourselves, which I know you and I are going to unpack a bit here today. So
Yeah. Okay. And I already am in awe of you. There's something about you. I can feel that you work on your brain. I swear I can feel your superpower oozing through the camera. You have this beautiful energy in but this wouldn't be the crown. What chakra is right here? Is it
right here is
just
your
your third eye?
third eye, crown, and your throat.
Something about I'm whoa, yes, you're just divine. So
Thank
I
you.
would be distracted if I didn't just say that to kick us off. I would just keep thinking about it. Okay, cool. So I would love, Sylvie, to simply begin by hearing from your voice who you are, what you're up to, anything from your mission in life to what you love to do when you have a free afternoon.
Oh, I love that. Would love to chat more about my mission. And I think the best way to chat about my mission is to talk about my story
Mhm.
because the quote unquote superpower brain that you're describing
Yeah.
is not something that I've been walking around with my whole life.
Hmm.
The story really starts with my master's. So, as Kate said, I'm doing my PhD in neuroscience. I'm currently writing my thesis. We'll just have a
Hmm.
little celebration. I'm currently writing my thesis,
Woohoo!
on track to finish in the summer.
Amazing.
And when I did my master's in neuroscience, also at McGill, I experienced a level of burnout that
Mm.
will forever change my life.
Wow.
And basically, it's not necessarily that the brain patterns started in my master's, right? There was definitely signs of it in my undergrad. There was signs of it in high school,
Mm.
but it really took a whole other form once I got to my master's. So
Yeah.
basically, when I decided to do my master's, there was a large part of me that was really curious about the brain. Thought it was
Yeah.
super mysterious. And,
Hmm.
I suffered from mental health issues. I had family that suffered from mental health issues. And I thought, anything that I can do to, and I'm a very curious person, anything I can do to help move the field forward would be great.
Hmm.
And during that time, I was working on a project and, was learning the techniques and getting integrated into the lab. And one of the cool things about grad school is that it's very unstructured. So you have a few courses, but it's different
Yeah.
than undergrad in the sense of like your project is what's driving your degree forward. So how much progress you make there, how much data you create there.
Yeah.
And this created a perfect environment for me to really highlight one of the strongest circuits in my brain, which I discovered a lot later, which was around not feeling smart enough or not
Hmm.
feeling like I was ever going to be smart enough to be successful.
Wow.
And so, yeah, in this environment, I was working really hard on the techniques. I really felt like I had to prove myself to the lab. I was the only, not that it mattered, everybody treated me really well, but I was the
Yeah.
only woman in the lab. I was like 10
Yeah.
years younger than everyone. So I really felt like an underdog. And I was pouring a lot of hours into techniques, into
Yeah.
data. And I
Yeah.
was really fortunate that around a year mark, my supervisor looked at what I collected so far and was like, you know what, this could be published, which is one of those things you hear in academia. Yeah. And your eyebrows raise and you get
Yep.
really excited.
Yep.
And you're like, wow, like if my work can be published, then
Yeah.
how much easier is it going to be in my academic career to get a good position, to get a good job, maybe be a professor, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was I put this idea of being able to get a first author paper
Mm.
over top of everything, over top
Yeah.
of my health, over top of my relationships, over top of my well being. And what that looked like, which some people may be able to identify with, and some people might think this is a bit extreme, but I think the feelings are likely similar, was that meant that I was smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day, drinking 2 French presses worth of coffee, getting a few hours at sleep at night, sometimes pulling all-nighters in the lab,
Yeah.
and working to the point that, people, my loved ones were nervous that I was gonna just pass out somewhere and,
Yeah.
like, end up having a concussion because I just wasn't taking care of myself, right? I wasn't eating
Yeah.
properly, and it got to the point where
Wow.
I I just wasn't able. If you were to ask me if what I was doing was healthy, I would say probably not, but it'll get better once the paper is published.
Right.
I'm just doing this so that the paper gets published, and I didn't think much more of it.
Yes.
I was seeing a therapist at the time, and still I was kind of in this space. And then I saw a psychiatrist who diagnosed me with bipolar type 2, got me on some mood stabilizer medication, which did help take the edge off.
Hmm.
But once we submitted the paper and I finished my master's, I had this moment where kind of innocently, I was like, I'd like to increase my mind body connection.
Mm.
And this was because I was so tired. I was bumping into things all the time, right? So I was getting
Yep.
bruises all over my body, but I was like, that can't
Wow.
be it. I must just have like lack of proprioception. I just need to increase my brain's awareness of my body. And that's when I discovered yoga for the first time.
Hmm.
And I did a simple YouTube video from Yoga with Adrienne, right? Shout out to Yoga with Adrienne.
Yeah.
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 Love her stuff. It was like a 15-20 minute video. And I remember crying at the end because it was really the first time that I got to experience my parasympathetic state, my rest and digest state. I
Wow.
got this
Wow.
glimpse of
Wow.
being able to have it.
Yes.
And then from that point, nothing was ever the same. So I dove into my yoga teacher training, learned meditation,
Mm.
taught yoga, meditation, do a ton of brain
Incredible.
reprogramming tools that I
Yes.
explored, did a training using EEG to guide meditation. So, using at home EEG devices that measure your
Wow.
brain waves to help guide you using your own brain waves to get into different states.
Wow.
And really, all of it led me to this direction that you can rewire your brain
Hmm.
for resilience and that you
Hmm.
don't need things
Hmm.
outside of you to feel like you are regulated. And
Wow.
that took a long time.
Wow.
It took me, I'm trying to think, from after my master's, which would have been 2018. Yeah, not quite 10 years, but maybe 6 to really like figure it out and go through frustrating points and try a bunch of different tools.
Yeah.
And now, what I can say with a lot of confidence is that I don't need things
Mm.
outside of me to be a certain way to
Mm.
know that I can get back to a regulated state.
Mm.
And I don't see a therapist. I'm not on any medication anymore. And
Wow.
I've never felt more like myself, which is really
Wow.
a big part of my mission is to
Yeah.
help people build that resiliency so that they can really access the truest parts of themselves.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I just want to like sit in that for a second to help them access the truest parts of themselves.
Because the truth is that
Hmm.
we're really not ourselves
Hmm.
when we're stressed, right? We're
Yeah.
kind of in this extreme
Yes.
form, right?
Yes.
We're under threat, we're under attack. We're not necessarily making decisions or actions that are coming from a place of what we would do
Yeah.
if we felt really regulated.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I'm making a note to come back to something you said that I'm curious about. And I have to know, though, what would you do on a free afternoon, Sylvie?
You're like, that's great, but what about this free afternoon? So as you mentioned, I study at McGill, so I'm in Canada. So I'm going to choose my free afternoon to be a free summer afternoon because that looks very
Mm,
different than our winter
yeah.
afternoons.
Yeah.
But I love being by the lake
Yeah.
and going to the cottage. That is my
Oh,
ideal afternoon.
sweet. That makes me think of I listened to one of your episodes where you taught that yoga class, I think by the lake at a cabin at your like camp that you grew up at, and how that was such a lovely experience for you. Random
Yeah, no,
plug
that
for
was
yeah.
I think that was stand-up paddleboard yoga. So that was doing like yoga
Cool.
truly like on
On
the
the
lake
water. Yeah.
on boards. Yeah, it's so much fun.
I love that. I've never done that, but I was gonna say I don't know if I could, but that's not good language.
I'm sure you could. I have to say, the best part of that type of yoga is the shavasana, that final pose where you're
Oh,
lying on your back,
yeah.
because then you're just floating on the water. Like, how much better
So
does that get?
cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay, so as I mentioned, you have a podcast, Build Your Best Brain. I'm curious, and you mentioned tools, using tools to like change how you relate to your brain, live in your body. Also, I want to say through your story, thank you for sharing that. That's so sacred and stunning. And your mission that's come from that is, I just like want to honor that and applaud that so much. And also, how you said in the beginning that you felt like you would never be smart enough or that would be something you would think about. That's one of those things like I would never have guessed
Mm,
about you, and, like, the irony in that is really mind-blowing because, like, I've been so excited to connect with you because I'm like, "She's a genius, she's so smart, like, I cannot wait to pick her brain." Isn't that just funny how that
it's
happens?
hilarious. It's
Yeah.
hilarious, but I'm glad you touched on that because it's something that I genuinely don't feel anymore. And I
Wow.
know that because, I'm at the level of the PhD now, and
Yeah.
we get questions all the time. And of
Yeah.
course, sharing on social media, you'll always have people who have questions, people that don't agree with you, people that
Right.
think what you say is garbage, which is all right. And I don't have moments when that happens where I'm like, this is because I'm not smart enough. It's either like maybe I didn't explain something properly, maybe I'm not meant to help this person.
Mhm.
Maybe I
Mhm.
just don't understand their question,
Yeah.
which took a lot of work. But what's
Yes.
interesting about this kind of circuit, right? Like when it comes to our limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
is that they're actually not all bad, right?
Hmm.
They did at one point serve a purpose, right? They did at one point try to protect us. They came together as a result of things we experience, right? And kind of
Yeah.
our brain finds ways to make sense of it.
Yes.
And, I'm sure that there's a version of me out there that if I didn't have that circuit,
Yeah.
I would have never dove as deep as I have on what I do now. And so I
Mm.
am grateful
Wow.
for those feelings for many
Wow.
years of
Yes.
not feeling smart enough.
So is a circuit a way that we like something that we repeat over and over again in our minds, or how would you describe what a circuit is?
Yeah,
Okay.
great question. So, a circuit is a collection of neurons that perform a specific function. And
Yeah.
so, these can be neurons within one region of the brain, but they can
Yeah.
also project to other regions of the brain.
Hmm.
And the function is usually a like input output system. So the input is some sort of sensory information. So if we use the example of we're preparing a salad for lunch,
Yeah.
you're going to use your eyes to locate all of your ingredients you need for the salad. And then that circuit is going to fire. Those collections of neurons are going to fire to
Hmm.
then have the output be your hand then reaching out and grabbing all
Hmm.
of the ingredients and
Yeah.
cutting and putting them
Yeah.
together. So thoughts and limiting beliefs are similar,
Yeah.
right? So you're out in the world. Let's use my master's as an example, right? So
Yeah.
I'm, let's say, giving a presentation in my master's,
Yes.
and the input I'm receiving is people asking me questions.
Yep.
Now, if I didn't have this circuit, maybe that input would be people are asking me questions. They must be curious about what I do. And then I
Yeah.
do my best to answer from a confident place. Or
Yes.
with this circuit being so active, they
Yeah.
ask questions. I go, this must mean I'm not smart enough. I didn't explain it well. Am I going to be able to answer this question? And
Yes.
then the output is I answer this question, but I'm stressed. I'm
Right.
nervous. I'm
Yes.
not so confident. So I do think of beliefs as circuits. Would we be able to
Hmm.
point exactly where it is in the brain? Not exactly, but we
Okay.
can see different areas light up and we
Yeah.
can see what the different outputs are.
Hmm. So interesting. Okay, so this is kind of a tangent, but from what I sent you, but I really want to go here. Okay, so you said beliefs. How would you define what a belief is?
That's a good question. A really good question. Beliefs are my definition of them is that
Yeah.
they are thoughts that we repeat
Yeah.
over and over again
Yes.
that we consider absolute truths.
Hmm.
So, an example would be, let's say for me, a thought I have over and over again is that pizza is the best food group and there's no other food group that can top pizza.
Yeah.
That's a belief that maybe not everybody shares, right?
Yeah.
But also, that limiting belief I have is a belief because I do think about it over and over again, right? Like, I'm not smart enough to be successful.
Yeah.
And that is, even if logically I can tell my brain that's not true, it's like an
Yeah.
ingrained truth in my brain
Yeah.
because, and you mentioned this before too, Kate, this idea of repeating,
Yes.
which is very important
Okay.
for keeping a circuit strong.
Hmm.
So when you have high frequency stimulation, so what they say, like a common idiom or phrase, is that cells that fire together wire together.
Yeah.
So when you give neurons high frequency stimulation,
Yep.
they're going to figure out ways to make it themselves stronger so that they don't need the same amount of stimulation to fire. And that firing, right, is basically that input output.
Hmm.
And what's interesting with that, and I love to share this with people so that
Yeah.
people can be more compassionate with
Yeah.
themselves when they
Yeah.
have sticky thoughts, sticky beliefs, or repetitive behaviors that are not
Yes.
serving them, that they want
Yes.
to change,
Yeah.
that in their brain, it's probably a really well oiled machine. And it probably doesn't take much at this point for it to go all the way off
Yeah.
because it's been repeated over and over again, likely from childhood to now.
Yes.
And there are ways to change it, but a big part of it is also having patience, right? That
Yeah.
is going to take repetition, right? Just
Yes.
like it took repetition to build it, it's going to take repetition to dismantle it and build something new.
Amazing. So, how can intentionally working to rewire our brain, how can that impact our lives,
Mm,
just our daily life?
yeah. A big thing that it helps with is the ability to manage your stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about what stress management is, because I even
Yes.
think there's
Yes.
differences in definitions and opinions.
Yes.
And then I'll tie it back to how rewiring is involved in that, especially when it comes to limiting beliefs, right? Because it's a great question. Why do we care to change those things that have been around forever?
Yes. Yeah.
But basically, our stress response will go off, and the input output system, right, which I won't get into now, but the input will be a stressor, right?
Huh?
So whether that's something happening at work, your kids not agreeing to eat their chicken, a
Yep.
messy kitchen,
Yep.
traffic, even our thoughts on their own, right, can be stressors. They can be what feels like to us threatening.
Yes.
Even things we're looking forward to can be stressors, right? Because if we
Hmm.
put them on a pedestal,
Yep.
then there's pressure to get them. And that can also be seen as a stressor.
Yes.
And then the output of that is either an increase in cortisol
Yep.
or an increase in neuroadrenaline.
Yeah.
And these act in different parts of the body. They belong to different receptors, but a big part of what they do is that they release energetic stores from our brain, from our
Hmm.
muscles,
Yeah.
so that we can confront our stressor. And if we learn how to manage our stressors,
Yeah.
we get a lot of energy back, right?
Hmm.
Like, I think what happens a lot with us is that we're chronically stressed. So we have a lot of
Yes.
stress and we haven't figured out, which is not our fault. There's like so much out there with stress regulation, and it all gets, I shouldn't say all, but most of it gets kind of like a one size fits all kind of marketing, which is just
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah.
But if you don't find ways to reliably bring yourself to balance, you really end up spending a lot of your brain and body's energy. And so
Hmm.
when I mentioned, right, feeling like more yourself, that's a
Yes.
part of it. You're
Yes.
better resource.
Yes. That's amazing. That's funny. I just saw something that said something like the most underrated kind of intelligence is our Was it metacognition, but just like our ability to like reflect and be the observer of what we're experiencing and how that's like actually one of the highest forms of intelligence?
That's incredible.
Yeah, it just totally makes me think about what you're describing. What did I want to ask you? Um Yeah, so is there like something I can do? I love the phrase like we're always only experiencing our own nervous system. Like, like as we go through the world, we're really always just experiencing this, whatever this is.
Hmm.
How can we like practice coming out of fight or flight and living from more peace within ourselves? Is there something like yeah, what would,
Question.
yeah,
It's a good question. And it's funny because it really links well with the metacognition that you mentioned. What I always suggest people to start with,
yeah.
and I can send you the episode I have where I give this tool, but awareness is the first step. So it's interesting that
Mm,
you have this kind of metacognition, being able to be like a third party observer,
yes.
because our limiting beliefs, they're also threatening, right? So when they
Mm,
get activated, right, they can get
yes.
activated from a stressor.
Yes.
Even without a stressor, when they're activated, they kick off your stress response. And
Yes.
because they're so strong and they've been active for a really long time, we're not
Yeah.
always aware of them.
Yeah.
And if we're not aware of them, we can't shift them. And then we're always kind of dealing with our stress symptoms, right? So then we're just like, okay, I notice I'm elevated. I'm going to do breath work. I notice I'm elevated. I'm going to go for a walk. I notice I'm
Right.
elevated, which is amazing. People
Yes.
that do that are already like way, way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But if you start bringing awareness to, all the thoughts and judgments you have, like usually with people, I get them to pick like 2 or 3 times in their day that they felt activated by a
Okay.
thought or a
Yes.
judgment or an
Yes.
action.
Yeah.
And then they kind of go through a couple different columns. But really, what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out the fear underneath.
Wow.
And after you do that for a week or two,
Yeah.
you start seeing how there's maybe like one or two fears.
Wow. Wow.
And so working on those
Yes.
makes such a big difference when it comes to regulating your stress because you're really getting it at more of the root of it.
Yes. How are you figuring out what that common fear is?
So, what we usually do is we'll write down, and maybe we can do one together. So, if we do the me getting a question in my
Yeah.
master's and
Yes.
feeling stressed by that,
Yes.
what that brings up in me is that, like, when that happens, I feel scared, nervous.
Yep.
And what is the fear underneath that scared nervousness? And the fear is that I won't be able to answer the question.
Yes.
What's the fear under that? I won't be able to answer the question because I'm not smart enough.
Mhm.
And then when I go a bit deeper through the columns, what I look at, and I don't do this for all of them, but I do think it helps with compassion around
Mm.
your limiting belief, is figuring out
Yeah.
where did it come from.
Yes.
And so for me, I got diagnosed with ADHD quite a bit later in life when I was 17, but it was definitely present during elementary school, and homework time was always tough
Yeah.
for everyone. Just me
Yeah.
sitting down doing problems. I didn't want to do it. It was always a fight with my parents. And, I, in my little 7-year-old brain, figuring out life kind of took away
Hmm.
from that, being like, well, this is so difficult because I'm not smart. And if I was smarter, then this would
Hmm.
be easier. And,
Hmm.
family would not be fighting as much. Dinner time, homework time would be more peaceful. And going even beyond that, where did it come from and how did it serve you?
Yes.
Because we often think as our limiting beliefs, as we talked a bit about before, right, is all
Yes.
bad.
Yes.
But when I was younger, when I did do well in school,
Yeah.
I got rewarded, right? Family was happy. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to this in a lot of different ways, right? Church is probably a good example of getting positive reinforcement,
Hmm.
school, work,
Yeah.
sports. And so,
Yeah.
you can begin to kind of see how having that limiting belief of like, oh, but when I do try really hard and show people that I might be smart, I get rewarded and I want to get rewarded. So there was a version of me that really benefited from having that circuit. And that's what,
Yeah.
there is a point where you do have to go beyond the awareness,
Yeah.
but that's a really great first step to really
Yes.
isolate. Okay, it's not that I'm getting triggered by 15 things in a day. It's really
Right.
that I'm getting triggered by 2 things.
Yes. And if someone figured out, like you said, your fear, feeling like not smart enough, or I'm trying to think something like a common one for me is like, oh, I'm misunderstood, or like I worry that someone will take something the wrong way. I don't know if that's like totally the underlying fear, but I'm curious, like, what is a tool that you used perhaps yourself to increase in that self compassion and like
Mm.
start to rewrite this story for you going forward?
Another tool that I use, which I'm always blown away. I'm always blown away how well it works because it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not a fun tool, but
Yeah.
it is to neutralize your limiting belief and to
Huh?
neutralize your fear. And so what
Yeah.
that means is seeing all the negatives
Uh huh.
of your fear, which of course I imagine for people that's not terribly difficult, writing
Yeah.
it all down.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, looking at the positives. And the
Yeah.
positives are a combination of, rational things, right? Of like, it's not the end of the world or, kind of looking at things big picture,
Yes.
looking at the inherent lessons you get
Yes.
from
Yeah.
having this fear,
Yeah.
looking at the opportunities you have, and then also looking at how working through this fear, what is that going to get you in the end? Who are you
Hmm.
going to be able to relate to more? Who are you going to be
Hmm.
able to help more?
Hmm.
And that helps a lot when it comes to having compassion for
Yes.
when you do
Yes.
get activated, you are in your stress response, the
Yep.
limiting belief comes up again, and you do
Yeah.
that thing of like, not again. How is this happening again?
Right. Yeah.
You can look at your list, but then you do get to a point eventually where it just comes on automatically that you're like, you know
Cool.
what? There's some
Yeah.
perfection in having this fear.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with it being activated right now.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
is a step in the right direction.
That's amazing. So, does that actually change how the brain looks when you look at it with an EE?
So, with the EEGs, it's great at measuring brain waves, and I use it to train brain waves. So,
Yes.
I'll briefly explain the technique and then I
Yeah.
will answer your question because it's a
Yes.
great question.
Yes.
But basically, it uses a technique called neurofeedback. And so you have this EEG,
Yep.
you place it on your head, and it's
Yep.
not like the crazy, like 19 electrodes where you look like a marshmallow with stuff coming out.
Yep.
It's usually just one point on a baseball cap.
Yep.
You connect it
Oh,
to your
cool.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy. You
Yeah.
connect it to your phone using Bluetooth,
Yeah.
and we pick a video with nice music.
Yeah.
And when you increase your brainwave, the music is going to increase in volume. And then when that brainwave decreases and dips, the volume will also decrease and dip. So you learn in real time what your brain is doing in real time.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you can figure out ways to over time, right? So the people that do this work with me, we work together for 4 months because the
Wow.
brain does not change on a dime,
Yep.
no matter what anyone tells you. If
Yeah.
they tell you that, run.
Yeah. Huh.
But you can start figuring out things to say to yourself, sensations to feel in your body to help boost those brain waves. And the brain waves we work on, usually, it's different for everyone, is alpha, which is associated with relaxation and reflection,
Hmm.
or theta, which is an even slower brainwave that's
Hmm.
associated with subconscious state, flow state, creative states.
Wow.
And so in the program I have, this 4-month
Yes.
program,
Yes.
we do neutralizing on steroids month 2 pretty early on.
Wow.
And it's hard to tease apart, right? The tool versus the neurofeedback training.
Okay.
But those brain waves do increase after that month consistently.
Wow.
It's hard. It's not,
Yes.
when I'm working with people one on one versus
Yeah.
my PhD, people
Yeah.
one on one, I kind of throw a bunch of different variables based off of their life experience. So it's not
Yep.
a perfectly controlled setting.
Yep.
But my theory behind why it works is that it takes the fear and gets it out of the fear center of your brain, which is the amygdala.
Wow. Wow.
And the amygdala has
Wow.
branches
Yeah.
into the areas that do increase cortisol and our stress response, right? So when you activate the
Yes.
amygdala,
Yes.
the fear center that has your fear beliefs, it has your
Yep.
fear memories, even
Yep.
your fear behaviors, right? You know how
Yes.
some people, when they get scared, they'll like
Yep.
act in a repeated way?
Okay. Yep.
If you can decrease that stimulation, then you
Yeah.
decrease the likelihood of the fear going off and your stress response going off,
Wow.
which is really cool. Yeah, and
That's
I've
really cool.
used neutralizing a lot for things that I don't enjoy in life, for things that I'm like, wish this was better. I'm like, all right, then we got to neutralize because you're placing conditions on yourself and you think that you can
Hmm.
only feel happy if this happens. Let's go fix that
Hmm.
and neutralize it,
Yeah.
as well as things that I really want to happen. So, a quick, fun story is
Yeah.
just because you guys have now heard a bit about my paper journey when it
Yes.
comes to my master's, there was
Yes.
another paper journey in my PhD that turned out quite differently,
Yeah.
which is great. Happy that it turned out differently. But when we submitted a paper, would have been over a year ago now. And the way that it works is that it gets in a peer review journal. So other
Yeah.
scientists at the journal will review it and give you suggestions on different experiments to do, edit writing, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we got those. They were reasonable. I worked on it for a few months, sent it back. They came back to us a month later saying everything looks good. And so this took around 5, 6 months, which is pretty reasonable,
Okay.
pretty average.
Yeah.
But then we went through the editorial process, which is really like crossing the T's, dotting the I's, just making sure everything's formatted.
Yep.
And that took what normally takes a few months, that
Yeah.
took 10 months.
Wow.
And it was just a lot of back and forth, and it was hard to
Yes.
pinpoint who was actually editing our
Yeah.
paper,
Yeah.
and we got flagged for what was it? We got flagged for plagiarism, but we weren't plagiarizing, it was like an AI review error.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a nightmare, and my
Yeah.
supervisor and I were talking about starting over and resubmitting to another journal, which I really
Wow.
didn't want because you can
Yes.
imagine, right, that you start this whole process again.
Right.
And so what I did was I neutralized, I dug deep in the fear. I was like, okay, well, what does it mean if this doesn't get published?
Yes.
And what I felt like it meant based off of my program and experience is that I wouldn't get my PhD when I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I dug even deeper. I was like, well, I think the fear is that I won't get my PhD at all, right? Is ultimately the fear that's coming up here.
Yes.
And so I neutralized how the pros and cons of doing a PhD for 4 years and not leaving with a certificate.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot. And it helped give me a lot more energy
Hmm.
to do the things that I wanted to do in a day,
Yeah. Yeah.
to go towards finishing my PhD. And
Amazing.
I would say, again, just leaving this out there, 2, 3 weeks after doing that neutralizing exercise, the paper got published. It's somehow
Wow.
editor the
Yes.
senior editor expedited it, and we published.
That's incredible. That's really cool. Is there like a common fear? I know you work a lot one on one with clients and with people in group settings. Is there like a commonality you would say that you see coming up right now of things that people get stuck on? And how are you helping them to combat that fear or that block?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's definitely everybody has their unique fears. Like
Yeah.
there's definitely when we work together on what that core limiting belief is that we're working together. I've never
Yeah.
used the exact same language for
Yeah.
anyone,
Yeah.
but I would say there's maybe three. There's one around being fully seen and taking space. So a fear around
Hmm.
being fully seen and taking
Yes.
space.
Yep.
That's definitely one.
Yes.
Another is feeling like people aren't doing enough. And usually it's doing
Hmm.
enough to achieve the life they want. Like
Wow.
whether that's career related,
Yes.
family related, physical health
Yes.
related. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
that's a big one.
Yes.
And then the last one is around feeling enough to be loved is
Wow.
another big one.
Wow.
Yeah. No, they're big. They're big. Like they're definitely not small, small fears.
Yes.
And it's very interesting when they start bringing awareness to them because they can see how
Hmm.
it shows up
Yes.
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Is there, in working one on one with clients, is there like a success story that comes to mind of someone noting that fear, neutralizing it, and really being able to shift how they engage in their life?
Yeah. There are a few. I'm trying to think of which one would be fun to talk about, but I think one that I'll talk about is with a woman who is in her mid 60s.
Yeah.
So it's definitely and I wanna bring this up because I think there is and it's being debunked and, like, people are talking about it more, but this idea that you can't change beyond a certain age, that you can't change your brain beyond a certain age.
Hmm.
This is why I wanted to bring this example because that's not the case in the people that I come across.
Wow.
And so let's call her Judy. She came to me and she was recently off hormone replacement therapy. So she was on
Yeah.
hormone replacement therapy for menopause, for hot flashes.
Yeah.
And it just so happened, right? And this happens, right? I think it's that they stop making the generic. No, they stop making the name brand and they only make generic. And it changes what we call formulation. So, like, some of the stuff in the pills are then different, and she just wasn't
Yeah.
reacting to it well. So she decided to go off of it.
Okay.
And yeah, lots of brain fog, hot flashes,
Yeah.
really stressed.
Yeah.
And what we worked on together was a lot of things, but we focused on increasing the theta brainwave, which
Okay.
is at the back of her brain with her eyes closed to increase flow, subconscious access. And
Wow.
because what we saw is that her brain was
Wow.
doing the opposite of what we expect. So when we close our eyes,
Yeah.
at the back of our brain, we expect our slower brain waves to increase.
Okay.
And this is a sign of safety in the brain,
Hmm.
usually.
Hmm.
Like when everything is kind of operating smoothly and
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're under attack or you're hypervigilant, then those slow
Yeah.
brain waves will increase when you close your eyes.
Wow.
But for her, her theta was actually decreasing
Huh.
when her eyes were closing. It was doing the opposite, which signaled to me that she was not feeling safe to
Wow.
close her eyes and rest. And so we
Yes.
worked together for 4 months.
Wow.
And at the level of her physical body,
Yeah.
no more hot flashes,
Wow.
no more hot flashes, slept through the nights.
Wow.
And what she said, which is really interesting because
Sylvie, that's incredible.
it is incredible. And the people, I do have to say, the people that come to work with
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
are incredibly motivated.
Yes.
And I'm often probably the fifth or sixth person that they've seen
Right.
about this, right? So they've
Right.
kind of tried the medication
Yep.
route, the
Yep.
therapy route,
Yep.
nutrition route, and they're like,
Yep.
something's not
Yes.
quite clicking. And so what she noticed after
Wow.
a few months of doing this was that because she was very self aware,
Yeah.
And she's really well educated and she's a
Yeah.
coach. So she has a lot of tools at her disposal. She has a
Yes.
lot of knowledge.
Yes.
And she said that she feels like she has space to reach for those tools now where
Wow.
she didn't have it before.
Yes. Wow. So what makes your work different or like that needed extra ingredient? Like she's a coach or she's tried all these other things. What is that extra special sauce that is helping this to click for people?
I think it's two things. So the and this works at both the levels. So I think the neurofeedback part is really great, where you're
Yeah.
getting direct feedback at what your brain is doing.
Yes. And that is in the scans that you are using when you're working one-on-one with people? Like
Exactly.
yes,
And the
okay.
thing with it is that it's all virtual. So I ship you this little EEG and then you do it from home every single day. So that repeated stimulation,
So cool.
yeah, for short periods of time really does
Yes.
help your brain change.
Wow.
And getting the feedback plays really well. And this is what
Yeah.
we can do for things beyond EEG with our brain's
Yeah.
reward system.
Wow.
Because they've done studies, right, where
Yeah.
using neurofeedback, they try to figure out, okay, so how much what we call reward rate does
Yeah.
somebody need
Yeah.
for their brain to catch on what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
And so, for example, with Judy, her meditations were to increase theta,
Mhm.
which meant that if she increased the music for 60% of her meditation, her
Huh?
reward rate is 60%.
Hmm.
And they've done studies where they've kind of fluctuated how much reward rate people get. And you
Yeah.
need, everybody's a bit different,
Yeah.
but you need over 50%, which is funny because we often think that we need to be harder on ourselves to get what we want out of out of life.
Yeah.
But for the brain to learn a new pattern of
Yeah.
firing,
Yeah.
it needs a lot of reward. And when you go below 50%,
Yeah.
usually what happens is it'll actually just plummet to like 10% or below because the
Huh.
brain kind of doesn't really know what we're trying to achieve
Yeah.
and it kind of gives up. A part of the transformation she experienced was that everything
Yeah.
she did daily in really small doses, right?
Yeah.
So the stress reduction routine
Yes.
was not stressful
Yes.
in and of itself
Yes.
and was done every day with a lot of compassion.
Wow.
And with the neurofeedback and how it plays on the brain's reward system, you're able to learn a lot faster. And even
Hmm.
they've looked at long term meditators that meditate
Yes.
using this
Yes.
technique,
Yes.
and they get in their meditations
Yeah.
deeply within
Yes.
like 30 seconds. Like the brain kind of catches on really quickly what it's trying to do
Cool.
and then goes in there. So it's a technique that's been around for since the 80s.
Yeah.
But what's new or newer
Yeah.
is the ability to have EEGs that you can bring home and then do the
Cool.
trainings yourself every day.
So cool. So you mentioned meditation. So how does our brain benefit on a science, your amazing neuroscience genius level? How can we change our wiring through meditation and or prayer? Like how do we benefit from
Ooh,
that?
I'm glad you brought that up. So, meditation, I like to think of meditation as brain food.
Cool.
Basically, because depending on the style of meditation you're doing, it has been shown that they activate different parts of the brain and the brain will
Wow.
experience different brain waves, right? So,
Wow.
for example, a loving kindness meditation, right? Where the objective is that you begin to embody feelings of kindness and you send it outwards.
Yes.
That's been shown to activate the left side of your frontal lobe, which
Wow.
is more associated with positive affect and positive emotions.
Wow.
So you can imagine, right, depending on what style of meditation you pick, if you do it
Yes.
every day for weeks, months, years,
Yes.
you end up getting structural changes in your brain, which you do see in people,
Wow.
which is fascinating.
Yes.
And you mentioned something else, prayer.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. is two things. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking of the rosary. The rosary
Yeah.
has been studied quite a bit.
Wow.
There's a type of breathing. So the breathing also helps with our stress response
Hmm.
because when we change our blood oxygen levels,
Yeah.
there's receptors at the back of our brain in a
Yeah.
fancy, it's just a fancy word, medulla oblongata,
Yeah.
that has receptors that will detect differences in blood oxygen levels
Yeah.
because it slightly changes the pH in your blood, the acidity in your blood.
Yeah.
And it's able to send projections down to your heart and to your rib cage to help you pace yourself, right? So the idea
Hmm.
is if we're facing a stressor, we need
Yeah.
energy fast.
Yeah.
We need oxygen to release and use that energy.
Wow.
So we'll tend to maybe like breathe through our mouths or do whatever we can to get oxygen fast. But
Yeah.
there's a type of breathing called box breathing, heart coherence,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
basically the inhale and exhale
Yeah.
is around 5 to 6 seconds each.
Hmm.
And so in a minute,
Yeah.
you breathe around 5 or 6 times. And people that do the rosary, they say that that's a very similar type of breathing pattern they
Interesting.
do with the rosary.
Yeah.
And I had one of my clients who is a woman in her mid 70s that
Yeah.
did this and was an absolute rock star. And with her, what was fascinating was, for the
Hmm.
first 2 months,
Yeah.
her brain was staying still. It was making some movements, but it was staying still. And we were
Yeah.
working on other tools. And she was also working on increasing her theta. And then towards the end of the program, it started going way up, way,
Huh.
way, way up. And I asked her, because she was taking notes what she was doing after. I was like, "Do you know what you're doing?" And she's like, "I'm saying the rosary in my head." I know. Isn't that crazy? Well, I guess it's not crazy, but that's the power of prayer.
Wow. So would you say that it's like scientifically backed for like if I were to pray or to do a loving kindness meditation, that that would not only impact my brain but also move outward from me? Have there been studies on measuring that?
That is a great question. There have been some studies that look at basically how your ability to regulate your stress
Yes.
potentially regulates people around you.
Wow.
And they've looked at that in different ways, but
Yeah.
an example is your breathing rate,
Yeah.
which impacts your heart rate, right? So
Yeah.
if you have a low breathing rate,
Yes.
which would suggest you have a low heart rate, you're more in your parasympathetic, those
Mhm.
around you are more likely to lower their heart rate
Yeah.
and breathing rate. And what's
Yeah.
cool is it's funny, I've seen it in a few ways because you mentioned, right? I teach yoga and meditation.
Yes.
So when I
Yes.
teach my Friday classes, it's Friday at 4 p.m. And
Yeah.
I love the people who come, but most
Yeah.
of them, which I understand, have to rush. They have to rush to get there 4 p.m. on Friday, which makes
Yes.
sense.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest time slot. So every time I walk in the room, I'm like, like I can
Yeah.
just feel everybody's
Yeah.
like shoulders are up and they're a
Yeah.
bit tense.
Yeah.
But after we do a couple rounds of breath work, and even just them, and they've seen this with different voices too, hearing my voice,
Mm.
they already start to get more relaxed. And that's,
Mm.
and I have experience, right? When I started teaching yoga, I was certainly
Yeah.
not as relaxed and regulated as I am now.
Yeah.
And I could tell those students were not that relaxed and regulated either.
Yeah.
So this is not a egotistical, like, I make everybody more regulated by being at the front of the room, but I do. And it's because of all the work I've put into regulating myself, which is
Yes.
stuff we can all do.
Yes.
And it's a cool thing to think about, right? Because I believe time management is the toughest part when it comes to like implementing new things and
Yeah.
prioritizing ourselves and
Yep.
taking time to figure out what works for us. But when we
Yeah.
do, it really bleeds into so many areas of our life and impacts the people closest to us
Mm.
in a really incredible way.
That makes me think of mirror neurons. I'm really
Yeah,
obsessed with them right now.
amazing.
Is there anything that you wanna that you would want to share about mirror neurons and how they can
Yeah. I'm
positively impact our
actually
life?
I'm doing a podcast series now called The
Cool.
Inside Out
Yeah.
Brain that
Yes.
talks a lot about mirror neurons.
Amazing.
I think something that would be useful for your audience to know about mirror neurons because
Yes.
and they're in many different parts of our brain.
Huh.
So they're in our motor cortex, visual, some are
Wow.
in the front of our brain. But what I will mention,
Yeah.
yeah, I think this will be cool for you guys. So we have a lot of muscles in our face.
Yeah.
And when we're experiencing different states, we do have different, what we call facial micro expressions.
Yeah.
And they've done studies where, so mirror neurons, first off, mirror neurons was discovered by two Italian scientists, and I don't remember the year, maybe in the 80s, no, maybe in the 90s, with two monkeys. And the idea was that one monkey was doing a motor task and one monkey was observing it. But what
Yeah.
they saw was that there's an area of the brain that lit up the same for both of them,
Hmm.
even though one monkey was just watching
Yeah.
and the other one was observing.
Yeah.
And this is where we discovered mirror neurons, which is the
Wow.
idea that neurons are active
Yes.
in observing
Yes.
something,
Yes.
not actually doing something. And so they
Yeah.
found these in the premotor cortex. And this is an area that kind of helps with the premotor and parietal. So premotor helps with planning motor movements,
Yeah.
and parietal is more what we call somatosensory, which is just inputting sensory information.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that when we talk about circuits,
Yeah.
they have branches too, right? They branch to different areas of the brain.
Hmm.
For example, some of our limbic regions, which is involved in emotional processing, emotional
Hmm.
regulation.
Yeah.
And they did an fMRI study. So, fMRIs is the same as an MRI, it's the same
Yeah.
machine, but
Yeah.
like a different setting.
Okay.
And so, you get into this like a little tube, it's a big
Yeah.
tube,
Yep.
and you have to like stay still, you can't move.
Yep.
And what's cool is that because you can't move, they can install a screen right in front of your face and
Huh.
flash images really quickly.
Yeah.
And so they were able to flash micro expressions
Huh.
really, really quickly and look
Yeah.
at people's brain activity.
Yeah.
Within microseconds, people's mirror neurons were activated and certain limbic regions were activated. And so, what's cool
Hmm.
about that when we bring it back to stress regulation
Yeah.
is that, let's say I'm teaching a yoga class
Yeah.
and I'm preoccupied, I'm a little stressed, my shoulders are a
Yeah.
bit higher, I maybe have a more serious look on my face.
Yeah.
It can be so subtle that people don't even
I'm like,
recognize. I know you're like adjusting your
push my
posture.
shoulders down.
Oh, that's funny. People might not even notice that something's
Yeah.
going on with your face and posture,
Yeah.
but they walk away feeling,
Feeling it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And I love that you bring that up because it's this idea that
Hmm.
regulating yourself is not stressful and
Hmm.
that you do have a lot more control over
Hmm.
your external environment than you think.
How would I have more external control if I'm like subconsciously like taking in all of this input without even realizing it? Does that make sense?
It does. It's the other direction. So think of yourself as the yoga teacher that wants to put a good class together and
Yes.
allow the students to feel relaxed.
Yes.
You have a lot more control over your students' experience
Wow.
depending on how relaxed you are.
Wow. Wow.
So when you
That's
think of like
wow.
giving a
Yes.
presentation,
Yes.
pitching a project to your boss,
Yes.
asking the barista to remake your coffee without them
Yes.
getting pissed off, you
Yes.
know?
Yes. So cool because there's been this theme for me this week that I've heard some favorite teachers say, and just randomly seen things written about just kind of this gentle challenge to smile at people more.
Mm,
And just like this invitation, like how powerful that is. And it just makes me think of that. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that actually." And I love how you say, like, think of it from the other, like, from that empowered position of impacting others. That's really lovely. That's really lovely. I wanna be respectful of your time. Are we okay with a few more minutes?
Totally okay with a few minutes. I know there's only so much we can
Yes.
absorb in one
Yes.
shot too.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm happy to stay on for a few more minutes.
I want to circle back to belief for a minute,
Yeah.
if we
Wow.
can. And one of my intentions with this podcast is to move, like I've talked about a lot, moving beyond beliefs and focusing on embodying the transformative power of love.
Mm.
And have said that because I've, in my own life, have felt like beliefs have become almost like, just a something I repeat after someone, and they've lost
Mm.
their like deep guttural knowing, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm.
I don't want to like, I guess why I want to ask you again about belief is like, I know that it can be powerful when embodied, when practiced, when used intentionally. And so I'm curious if there's anything else that comes to mind about the power of belief or even intention, maybe. Anything that comes to mind for you. Or maybe even like, yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks
No,
for letting me rattle a little bit. Rattle on.
it's a great question. It's a great question because embodying beliefs is different and it is a nuance that is hard to describe and hard to capture.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people in the science community, in the psychology community, that talk a lot about beliefs. Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, not Neil. There's so many, and I'm going to miss so
Yeah.
many. But something that I will say is that beliefs do have a profound change in your biology and your
Mm,
neurobiology. And it's
mm.
been something that we have known since the 1800s.
Wow.
So, in the 1800s was the first time that we've given people what we call a sham treatment. So, a sham treatment, by definition, is a treatment that doesn't have any like psychoactive power,
Mm,
but is designed to help soothe and comfort someone. And so in clinical trials, we always have a placebo group where we tell the group, okay, you're getting a pill that is going to do blank. And it's
mhm,
really a sugar pill.
mhm,
And the reason they do this is because it's been shown over and over again that people that get a placebo do experience positive effects,
hmm,
even though it's only a sugar pill.
hmm,
And it's because they genuinely believe that they're getting something that's going to help them.
mhm.
And so, I mean, I worked in biotech between my master's and PhD, and it's just something that we controlled for, right? It's just
Yeah,
like, okay, but is our treatment going to surpass the placebo or not?
yeah,
But when we think about our everyday life and our limiting beliefs and the
yes.
potential power we have at building a new belief,
Huh.
you can physically, physically change your body and your brain.
Yeah,
And everything we've talked about is
yeah,
really kind of like the groundwork in building a new belief,
yes,
right? Because if you are not aware of your stress, if you're not aware of your limiting beliefs, if you
yes,
struggle to
yeah,
neutralize them and get out of your amygdala, your
yeah,
brain is really not in a spot
mhm,
where it's going to create something new. It's not going to prioritize learning new things
yeah,
when it literally thinks you're under attack all
yes,
the time.
yes. Yeah, I'm inspired to, like, scan through my day and think about, like you said earlier, those, like, big moments maybe where I'm, like, reactive and to try to, like, sift through what a common fear would be and then
Yeah.
neutralize it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll send you what I'll do, Katie, is I'll send you I have the document, it lives on my Google Drive.
Amazing.
I'll send you the
Amazing.
link and you can put it in your
Amazing.
show notes and anybody
Amazing.
can go grab it and start doing it.
That's incredible. Yeah, so where can people find I'll link that in the show notes, and where can
Yeah.
people find you and your like, this is, like, numerous times throughout our conversation, I'm like, "This could change the world."
Thank you. And it's honestly, it's my big thing. And I'm not the only person who
Yes.
teaches these elements, but my main motivation
Yeah.
is for people to be able to rely on themselves and not
Mm.
need things externally
Yeah.
to be a certain way. So, in terms of free things,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, have Building My Best Brain podcast.
Yes.
Um, if you get on the email list, I also do webinars, free webinars throughout the month, which are more like Q&A style, either
Cool.
diving
Yes,
deeper into the
I missed
science.
that somehow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diving deeper into the science or getting more curious about your particular situation, like applying small tweaks.
Amazing.
Because often there is a block between learning and integrating. So that's really
Yes.
what those webinars are for.
Amazing.
Social media, you can find me on synaptic.sylvie, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, and all of my services if you want
Hmm.
to dive even deeper on my website, which is www.synapticsylvie.com. But I definitely invite people to dive into the podcast. That's where you can get the most bang for your buck and bring your questions to the webinar to gain some clarity.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Kate, and thank you for your great questions. This was a lot of fun.
So fun. Would you be okay with ending with some rapid fire questions?
Yeah. I'm gonna have a sip of tea, and
Have
then
a
you can
sip of
just
tea. I love it.
line them up.
I love it. I've got my adaptogenic coffee that I enjoy.
Do you now?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. I feel like
Do
it
you like it?
I love it. I feel like it, hugs my nervous system while also
Nice.
I still love coffee. Like this is my compromise to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I recently sometimes I go back to full calf, but I recently switched to decaf coffee, and,
How's
for a
that
while,
going?
I wasn't doing
Yeah.
any coffee, but I was like,
Yeah.
"But I really miss
The
a
cozy
taste." I
hug.
used to be a
Yeah.
barista.
Yeah.
Yeah, my partner jokes that, like, out of all the things I've done in my life, he thinks I'm most proud of being a barista, but I did, I loved it.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, it was too hard to, like, not have that taste in the morning, you know?
Yes. I totally feel that. What kind of tea do you have going right now?
But right now, I got a peppermint.
I love it. Okay, are we ready?
I'm ready.
So, when or how do you remember the presence of God, source, love from within your physical body?
When I'm in nature, when I'm in the beauty of nature, and when I just feel it in my body and my mind feels
Mm,
completely in the moment.
I love that. What does faith mean to you?
It means that no matter what happens, I'll always be taken care of.
That's lovely. How do you hear from God? And what, may I ask, are you hearing right now?
I hear when my mind is still enough.
Mm-hmm.
I hear things, little nudges, or I
Yeah.
feel certain things in my body.
Yeah.
And what is coming through right now is that there is enough to go around.
Hmm.
There's enough to go around. There is enough love to go around,
Hmm.
like love for others
Yeah.
and love for yourself. There is enough.
That's really lovely.
It's a lovely question.
And lastly, I love to end every episode with an invitation to healing, whether that be a small mindset shift or a physical practice. I'm curious if there's anything that comes to mind for you that you'd like to invite us into for the days ahead.
Yeah. I would love to give you guys one of my favorite breathwork tools, especially it's something that I implement when moments of panic
Hmm.
sink in as
Yes.
a way to shift swiftly so you can basically access the rest of your brain.
Hmm.
I joke because I did this before meeting my partner's parents for the first time because I
Yeah.
was a bit
Cute.
nervous.
Yeah.
And It was subtle enough, but he looked at me, he's like, "Are you breathing funny?" And I was like, "You gotta let me have this. You gotta let me have this."
That's sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was sweet. But yeah, why
I
don't we
love
all take
that.
a seat, relax our
Amazing.
shoulders, close our eyes if that feels comfortable, and start breathing in and out through your nose if possible, allowing your facial features to soften, your shoulders to relax. And we'll begin to do a physiological sigh. And so, what this is that we're going to inhale twice back to back through the nose and do a long, slow exhale out the mouth. So, I'm going to do one as an example. I'd inhale for 1, inhale 2, exhale out the mouth. Good. We're going to do 3 together. Inhale 1, inhale 2. Exhale out the mouth, nice and slow. Good. Inhale 1, inhale 2, exhale out the mouth. Then we're going to inhale 1, inhale 2, exhale slowly out the mouth, and then come back to your normal breathing. And just taking a moment to notice the difference in your body.
That's lovely. I do feel more, yeah, just this,
You
whatever
look it.
this is.
You look it. I was looking and I was like, I mean, you've looked beautiful this entire episode, but I was like, you're looking like an angel, just like sitting there glowing. But for this practice, I usually like to do it in sections of 3. So I'll do 3 of those and then 3 normal breaths, 3 of those, 3 normal breaths. That after this, Kate, I will send you a link to a video, I believe, a video or an audio where I have this guided.
Amazing.
So if people want to grab it, they can
That's fabulous.
get started. Yeah.
I will use that myself.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because it gave me the image of this might sound weird, but sometimes I just like get little images that speak to me of a water wheel.
Oh, fun.
Yes. And there's a beautiful, shoot, what is it? There's a beautiful poem that I love that speaks to like this nourishing essence of the water wheel. I'm going to find it and I'm going to,
Yeah. Send it to
I'll
me.
send it to you. Yeah.
I want that poem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really lovely. You're amazing. Thank you for your time and your
Thank you for
genius.
having me.
Yeah. 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 You're just a divine queen being. And thank you, sincerely, thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world and teaching people this idea that like our fear can move. Did you say it moves from the amygdala to a different place in our brain?
It decreases the activity in the
Yes,
amygdala,
yes,
which
which
means
is
that
our
we
fight
can
or flight.
have
Yes.
exactly more energy to
Oh,
redirect to other places.
that is really incredible. That's really, really beautiful.
And
Less
we all
fear.
have it.
Yes,
We all
yes,
have it.
yes. So that means like the fear, that just like it doesn't actually necessarily go away. It just like changes form, kind of. It shifts into a different kind of energy.
That's an interesting way of describing it, but kind of, because basically, if you weaken a circuit, right, which is what
Yes,
you're doing,
yes,
you can use those connections to create
yes,
other connections.
yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. To me, that's like compassion at work. You're not just shoving it down. That's cool. Well, thank you, Sylvie. I appreciate you sharing your goodness.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
my
Thank you.
pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for listening. It's such a joy to be together. There are some phenomenal free resources for you in today's show notes. I hope that they bring life and goodness to your day. If this was life giving to you, I would so appreciate an authentic review and to follow the show. It truly helps us connect with other people longing to embody and spread the energy of Jesus. I hope you have a beautiful day.